What is up, guys? Back again with another video. I know we've been really busy lately, but this one's an important one. This is the tools video. So I'm going to walk you through our free giraffe tool, which I know a lot of people used last year with a lot of success. Success. That's the word. I'm not editing that out. This is going to be a one take. There will be mistakes. Nothing I can do about that. So what we're going to do is we're going to run through how to use the tool, kind of some basic stuff, and then I'll show you a few tips and tricks at the end of what I do when I draft, how I use it. One custom modification I do on my own sheet that I don't put into the tool, but it's super easy for you to add and helps you out a lot in the middle of a draft. So let's jump right into it. So if you go to the link, which will be in the comments, or if it's in the comments, this will not be on the podcast. So if you're watching this, go down to the comments. You can find it if you don't use it already. It's totally free, so you go in there and grab it. Some projections are paid for. Well, you have to go get them. Like DOMs, for example, are my favorite. I really like DOMs. Scott Cullen puts out some good projections, although he's doing points only this year as far as I know so far. So unfortunately, to get those peripheral projections, you've got to go to either DOM or Dauber. Those are my two favorite ones to pay for, although I think DOMs is the best value this year because you also get the athletic on top of that, which is pretty dang good. So let's start off with what you do first. So first off, when you're going to use it, the first thing you need to do is make a copy of the tool. You can't just plug in your numbers in here. You've got to actually make a copy. So the first thing you got to do is go to this home tab down here at the bottom, and you click this to make a copy. So let's do that, and it'll prompt you, do you want to make a copy of this tool? And you will. Now, it's going to take a little bit of time to just get it up and running. So it'll take a second just to fully make the copy because there's a lot of formulas, a lot of stuff going on in the background. So it might take a bit for you, but don't worry, it'll be there. So once you make the copy, the first thing you got to do is go to league settings down here, and you've got to input what type of a league you're in. Now, this tool does come with Laidlaw projections, Scott Cullen projections, and Daily Faceoffs free projections. Those are all free for you, but they're already in the tool for you to use. So you can choose your type of league first between cats and points. Let's do cats for this. What the ADP is that you use. Let's say I'm drafted on Yahoo and what positions I use, which is Yahoo. And in our main league, we use goals, assists, let's say PIMs, power play points, shots on goal, hits, and blocks, and that's it. Now, the most important thing here to note is that the projections and the rankings that I'll show you, or the rankings that I'll show you in a second that are spitted out from this tool, do not work if you don't have projections for even one category. So say here, for example, points work, but they'll be undervalued because you don't have any projections for that. So let's say here, for example, I have hits, right? And I wanted to use Laidlaw or Scott Cullen. My entire sheet would be broken because neither Scott Cullen nor Laidlaw project hits. But if you were to go now and look at Daily Faceoffs rankings, let's go over to the player rankings really quick. So if I went over to the player rankings tab, you'll see that there are rankings here, right? You have Daily Faceoffs rankings. Those are working. You don't have Laidlaw or Scott Cullen. That's because Laidlaw and Scott Cullen do not project at least one of the categories that you have. So say you go and buy Dom or you buy Dauber or whatever, you need to make sure that they project what you need here. And if they don't, that's okay. Just leave it out. So say you get Dauber. I know Dauber doesn't do power play points, for example. If you were doing Dauber and you were drafting like that, remove power play points. It's okay. It'll still work. It's not going to be as accurate, but it's good enough to get you there. So that's the first thing you want to make sure to do, is that you're including here in this section here, and the same thing goes for goaltenders. You want to make sure to have all the categories projected that you're using. So that's a really important thing to note. Now, after you've inputted these, now you do have the option. Say you go buy Dom or you get Dauber or something like that. How do you put those in? Because you'll notice that if you go to the player rankings, there's these things called import sheet 1, 2, and then there's Laidlaw, Cullen, and DFO. Right, so what do you do? Now, I'll show you a quick example here of my sheet. So if I go over to my skater import sheet 1, you can see where I've imported all these kind of stats that I need. Now, you don't need to import all the stats from a sheet, but you just need the ones that you count. So in this case, I count goals, assists, PIMs, power play points, shots on goal, right? So I've gone ahead and put in my, I've gone in and put in my league settings, which for this, I was just playing around with what it looks like for a standard Yahoo league. And this is the old tool. I'm just using this old one because I don't want to have to redo the formula. But here you have everything inputted. And then on the skater import sheet, I went ahead and imported all the stats from DOM sheet. So what I do here, and for DOM sheet, one thing you need to remember is that if you do use that, when you import it, you've got to import as values. So you copy and paste as values. So say I was copying this, just an example, right? I copy, I made some kind of weird symbol. Let's say I copy this, right? And then I wanted to paste it here. When you go to paste it, you've got to put paste, right click at the top, paste special, paste values only. That'll get Dom's stuff into the sheet because he uses a bunch of formulas. If you just copy and pasted, it wouldn't work. So you would just go to the skater import sheet, you would copy the player names, and then you'd go kind of category by category, importing what you need. So if you need goals, if you need PIMs, if whatever it is that you count, make sure to import that into the sheet, and it'll all be spit out here onto the player rankings or the all player rankings, which is for points. So it'll show you how many points people are projected to get. So that is pretty helpful. So now let's show you kind of how to use it. So that's just how to import it. So that's the first step. The things to remember there are you need so if you have categories set up, the one thing you need to remember is that if you have a category here and you don't have stats for it, that import sheet or that provider won't show up for rankings because there's nothing there, right? And it needs all of them to spit out some sort of ranking. Otherwise, it'll just be blank. So you can fix that by removing them or whatever. The second thing is just to remember to go to these skater import sheets, these goalie import sheets, and import kind of whatever you need. That's the most basic thing, is just import what you need and you're good. If you happen to have more than one provider, say you got Dauber and Dom, if you go up here to view up in the top and you go to hidden sheets, you'll see that there's more import sheets. So there's the second skater import sheet, there's a goalie import sheet too, and that'll give you more options to be able to import. So that's an important thing to note there. You can go up to 2 providers. Used to be 3, but I kind of removed that because people weren't using it. It bogged down the sheet a little bit, and I introduced Laidlaw, which was not in the sheet last year, so that makes things a little bit easier. So now let's move on, and sorry I'm moving a little bit quick here. Definitely leave questions in the comments if you have any, if you notice anything wrong. Now let's talk about how to use this thing. How does it help you win your league? So there's a few things that help a lot. So the first thing is this draft board. So what you do here, say you're drafting it, this is a 12 team. We did a mock recently and I used it on the mock draft. What you want to do is you want to put all the names of the teams or the people drafting up here in the order that they're going to be drafting. Okay, so here you'd put Adam, Chuck, Joel, whatever it is, you'd put them up here, and you can insert your league name if you want to. You don't have to, but you can. If you say have a 10-team league, you can just go ahead and delete these 2 columns or delete columns at the end and get it to 10 teams, and that's totally fine. And then what will happen is once you put these names up here, when you go over to draft leaderboard, this is the holy grail when it comes to drafting. This is the thing that's going to set you apart. The reason is because this is where you know how you're doing in the course of a league. So say for fun here, let's just put it, and by the way, this just finds a name for you as you're going. So let's say McDavid goes. I'm just going to do this for just as an example. Because it shows you how you're doing relative to the league and also how your own team is composed. So later in the draft, you know, okay, I need to go for hits, I need to go for shots, I need to go for blocks. It kind of tells you where you need to go. So let's put here, I don't know, McKinnon, then Draisaitl goes, then Ovechkin. It's kind of a problem how much I remember the top order of of the ADP at the moment. So then you'd go over to the draft leaderboard and you'll see that this starts to fill in. So it shows you a few things. And in this case, you'll see that I only use goals, assists, PIMs, shots on goal, hits, and blocks because that's what my league counts. But say you don't count blocks, you can delete blocks and you're good, and the variance will actually update. I at least think it does. I don't remember if it does, but I think it does. So anyways, you'll start to see kind of that things fill in, and you start to see where people are deficient, where people are a little bit better. So if you look at Ringolds, for example, who took Ovechkin, right? So here on Ringolds took Ovechkin, you go to the draft leaderboard, you'll see that Ringolds is much higher relative to everyone else in the hits category. So if you're Ringolds in the next round, and even looking forward, let's say this continues, right? You're first in hits. A Brady Tkachuk might not be as interesting to you anymore. Or an Evander Kane might not be as interesting anymore to you, because where are you lacking? You're lacking in the assist department if you're Ringolds. So if I'm Ringolds, I'm targeting assists maybe in the second round. Maybe I'm going for like a Blake Wheeler or someone that just gets more assists than goals, because from the goals perspective, I'm already high. And then at the end of the draft, what you want to be is you want to be really balanced. You don't want to necessarily be too much ahead in one category and then really behind in another category. That's not what you want. You want to be pretty balanced. You want to be competitive throughout. And this helps you see that you're competitive. So if I'm looking at this, for example, I'm looking at, for example, Adam, and Adam seems to have maybe the most balanced team on paper here, right? Of course, missing in the hits and blocks category, but you can make that up later. And one good way too to check is by kind of looking at the variance, and this will help you quite a bit to just kind of see, okay, what's my variance from category to category. On one hand, being low is good. On the flip side, it can be a bad sign if you have reds. So for example, when you look at Husey here, yeah, low variance because everything is close together, which means you're pretty balanced. The problem is that you're not really great at anything. So I don't like that Panarin pick because, yeah, low variance, but you're pretty low in PIMs relative to everyone. You're low in hits. You're not that great in shots. You're not that great in power play points. You're also not that great in goals. So that's not great, right? Sure, low variance, fine, but you're not that great in everything else. And you'll see that the McDavid pick here with Chuck has a very high variance because you miss out on those PIMs, you miss out on the shots on goal relative to everybody else. And so this is really important to use as your draft goes along because you'll see what you need to target. So again, Ringgold's would have to target assists here. Chuck would think, okay, I need to go after some PIM guys later. And Evander Kane here, for example, for Chuck would make a lot of sense because you've got those points locked up with McDavid depending on who you go after that. So that's kind of how you use the draft leaderboard, at least. And you can select where you want to get your projections from. Now, not everybody has all the categories projected, obviously, but that's an aside. So, and that's Colin from last year, by the way. That's why Colin is working here, because this is last year's sheet. I use the skater import sheet. I don't use Colin. I would have used Colin if he had things other than points, and he might now. I haven't checked in a few days. But if he doesn't, then if he only has points, then it's not that useful. So the last thing I'll talk about here is kind of this trick on the actual player rankings tab. Where is that? Let's see. Down here. Okay. So on the actual player rankings tab, one of the things that you want to do when you're drafting is you want to pay attention to the value of a player. So say, right, you have Brady Tkachuk. Okay. His ADP is 63.1, but he's ranked 5th overall, according to my projections that I have. You don't necessarily want to be taking Brady at 5th overall. That's not what you're looking to do. What you're looking to do is maximize your value relative to ADP. And so if I look at Brady and I say, okay, he's at 65.1 ADP, but ranked 5th overall, that's a guy I want to reach 2-3 rounds ahead, but not take 5th overall. And that's a huge boost in value. That's a huge win for you. And so what I do is I create a second column here called difference. So I'll just do it again here so that everyone can see. You would right click on column E here on the import sheet. You would insert one on the right. And all you want to do essentially is take the ADP and subtract it from the rank. And it'll suggest you to autofill it. You can autofill it. And that's how you get this. Now, the coloring is all conditional formatting. So you would select this whole column. You would go to format, go to conditional formatting. And what I do here is I'll add another rule, and you just create this, like, that's the wrong one. This one. There we go. And then you create this, which tells you kind of, okay, where are people? I think I might have done a different percentile. Yeah, I did this like custom percentile, but what I did here, which is really basic, just this color scale works just as well. And that's how you would get this. So then when you're in the middle of a draft, what you're looking at, what you're starting to look for is saying, okay, where can I get value as the draft continues? And this is where I'd swap between sorting by ADP and seeing, right? So like if I'm sorting by ADP here and I have this difference marker, I immediately notice that Victor Hedman at 12.6 is just way too high. This is, I think this ADP is from last year too. Let me see. Where's Artemi Panarin? No, Panarin's 5.8. This is from this year. So immediately here, I notice, right, Artemi Panarin minus 18.1 doesn't work for my league. That's not worth my value. Whereas I see Austin Matthews right here, great value, perfect. I don't really want to be touching Braden Point, given the projections I have. I don't really want to be touching Victor Hedman, but as I look ahead, okay, Mika Zibanejad is good value here at 22. Steven Stamkos is really good value since he's 10th overall and going 25.4. So I start to look ahead and think, and maybe even before the draft, I jump into this sheet and I start to mark. Normally what I'll do is I'll normally mark guys like Cale Makar, for example. I'll kind of go in and actually mark them colors of whether I like them or not, guys that I'm paying attention to. Because then what this allows me to do is then I can rank I can sort by, say, the actual rank itself, and I'm eyeing guys that I like. So I'm seeing, okay, Patrick Laine here I like at that ADP, and I just swap between ADP and the actual rank itself for players so that I can see, okay, where are guys at? I'm avoiding guys like Braden Point. But again, if you do it by only rank, it starts to get a little bit tough because you might reach, right? You might see Brady Kachuk at 5th overall, be in that first round, be ranking by this and saying, oh, well, that's it. Brady's an obvious steal. So normally I rank by ADP and just kind of scroll down as I'm in the middle of a draft. And if I have these already marked, I'll start to know, okay, who am I eyeing and who is a good value? Because as you start to get later into these rounds, you notice like, okay, I should probably avoid Quinn Hughes. I should probably avoid Petrangelo. And then you can also go down and say, what defensemen do I like if I don't like those? Roman Yossi is right at value. That's really how I do this. Brady Kachuk, obviously, incredible value there. Brent Burns is giving me good value on defense at a later round. So that's how I tend to draft. I tend to draft with a mix of ADP and the rank and seeing where I can get that value. And so it blends this idea of value over replacement with where can I actually get them at, which is really important. Value replacement is great, right? Like if I see that, I think Cale Makar, for example, probably has a really high value over replacement for defenseman because he gets so many points. But relative to that ADP and the rank, it doesn't make sense for me. So I don't really care, quite frankly, how good he is in a value over replacement in the defenseman category when I can get another defenseman later like Roman Yossi that's right at value, or Brent Burns is actually giving me positive value. So that's how I look at it when I'm drafting, when I trust the ranks and I kind of have an idea of the direction I want to go. And this tends to help me out a lot in the draft, especially as you get later, you start to find these gems, right? You start to get back here into the 150s and you start to find some real gems relative to rankings. You see Tomas Tatar at 95, Brian Russ at 68. So huge value at 155. So once I'm late, I can easily scroll down here and see, oh, there's so much. And this actually shows you just how much value there is in these late rounds, right? So this is, in my opinion, the best way to draft and to maximize what you're doing. And then once you get into these later rounds, it helps a lot. And at that point, you're just gambling, right? It's really great to sort by that difference. Ooh, it always shows the NAs first. You can sort, you can filter them out. But anyways, you can then go down and see, okay, who offers me the best value? And Edler is currently not being projected. I'll show you that in a second. But this is where you kind of find the guys that are defined by the best value in their rank relative to their ADP. Hopefully that helps. Definitely ask questions in the comments if that doesn't make sense. But it should be really easy. It's just ADP minus the rank. The last thing I'll mention here is that sometimes you'll notice a guy like Edler isn't projected, and he'll have a blank here. And the reason for that is because some people use different names for players, like different projection providers will offer different names. So let's use Edler as an example here. Edler is Alexander on here, but if I go to my import sheet and I look up Edler, he's Alex Edler. And so all you got to do is switch him to Alexander. And if you go back to your rankings now, you'll see that he's now projected. And so that's all you got to do. Same with Dadonov. Dadonov is II on here, and I'm pretty sure on my rankings or on my import, he is a Y. So if I look up Dadonov, he is a Y. So I would just switch this to II. It's a little bit annoying, but there's really not much I can do about that. And you'll see that he now gets ranked here. So still good value. So anyways, that is the tool video. I hope that helps. I know it was a little bit rushed, but I think there's another video too. I'll link it down below. That was our old video, which I think goes a little bit more in depth. I wanted to focus more on how do you use it and how to maximize it in the middle of a draft. And other than that, definitely throw a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Share this around with your friends. Subscribe if you haven't already, and feel free to ask any questions down in the comments. Thanks, guys. Catch you next time.